Welcome, welcome. You're listening to 360 Info. I'm your host, Antonio. To manipulate history is to manipulate consciousness. And to manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities. And to manipulate possibilities is to manipulate power. Yes, welcome, welcome. We got a great show for you today. The sun is shining today. I'd like to thank everyone who participated all month long in our June events. Now we in July. Hey, we getting it on down. 2022, we halfway there, y'all. Yes, but again, I'd like to thank everyone who's participated in the programs, great programs down at Whitaker Park. It was nice. Yes, lovely day. Again, thanking everyone. Brother Vince is in the remote studio. What's going on, Vince?
I want to continue that spirit of gratitude and thank everyone who showed up last night at Larchmere Arts for the performance of Kenge. And they did a fantastic performance, and then we had some dialogue with the brothers, and they were taking questions from the audience, and then we concluded the session with a nice dance. So we definitely got our groove on last night. Thanks to the brothers for coming through and putting down. They're going to be at Africa House today, so when this show concludes, you'll be able to go down to Africa House down on East 81st Street off of Huff. And they're going to have a fun-filled day. There are going to be performances by Kenge and You People Vocal Ensemble. There's going to be drumming sessions and dancing and food. And you'll be able to purchase some artifacts from the brothers who have brought them all the way from the other side of the planet. So if you're not doing anything this afternoon, and there's a very strong possibility that you will be doing something, but you should go down there and chop it up with the brothers. So again, thanks to everyone who attended last week. Also, as always, we'd like to remind you that if you are interested in developing an income stream that you can do absolutely passively, just reach out. You can text cash flow to 216-780-2470, 216-780-2470. We had a fantastic week on the platform this past week. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it was a great week, and earning is easy when you do it the way we're doing it. Without any further ado, we're going to proceed with the show. Always like to remind you of what's going on at Larchmere Arts, and we're going to be doing some spoken word and music performances in the coming month. And we'd just like to welcome everyone there. So today on tap, we have Nana Kra. That's how I know him. Many people know him as Dr. Kwa David Whitaker. He is a psychologist, an attorney, and he's also got a fine educational institution here in Cleveland called Wings Academy. And he is working on the construction of an African-centered university in the country of Ghana, on the continent of Africa as well. His irons are in a lot of different fires, and he's doing great things. No stranger to 360 Info Network. I'd like to welcome Dr. Kwa David Whitaker.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. And Memo Ache to you, Nana.
Memo Ache.
Yes. Doc, everything's all right, huh? We got you nailed down here in Cleveland there for a minute, huh?
So mid-August, and I'm out of here.
Out of here, yeah. Okay.
Oh, so you're leaving early this year?
Well, there's a group coming from Kent State. Then we have a conference in September at University of Cape Coast, an All-African Diaspora Education Summit. So that's September 19th to the 25th. And then it's right up on my usual schedule. So I booked my ticket, subject to change, from August to March.
Okay. So we can't call you a snowbird anymore. This is like, I'm living over there and I'll just visit America when I have to.
You got it. You got it.
All right, Brother Antonio.
Yes. Hey, Doc, again, I appreciate, you helping us out during the month of June and offering up the Wings Academy, and you always been there when we called upon you, and so I'd like to get that out the way and appreciate it. And during the one of the programs with the prayer and meditation piece, you offered up a video that was actually produced, I believe, around 2008, and I thought it was profound, and it validated some things for me that some of us have always been kind of thinking about it, but that kind of brought it home, and I think it would shed light a little bit to what's going on, in the present state of America with, folks wanting their country back, this Roe versus Wade thing. It would bring a little light to what's going on and what direction and how we need to prepare ourselves and arm ourselves, mentally and physically about, the coming, I guess what's to be laid out as far as America is concerned, and what we should be thinking about and doing on that demographic video that took place in 2018. You want to speak on that for me, Doc?
Well, you gave me a couple of topics, and one was the demographics as it relates to non-black people, non-African people, and also opportunities in Ghana for development business or just for people's information. But I have another topic I'd like to squeeze in before that. Because what we've been doing is actually connecting the dots. And if we connect the dots, we can see things better and we can get a sense of what's going on. So I would like to get permission to do that, even though it's much more than the hour that we have. I think it's about an hour. So it's more than that, but it'll be perhaps a good introduction to a lot of things, all of which tie together.
Well, Doc, this your show. This your show, Doc. Go ahead.
How things tie together, then we're not confused and we're not misreading signs that are obvious. But the first thing I'd like to suggest is that most of our people, well, I won't say most of our people, but a lot of our people, when they hear things, they focus on the fact that that's not true, that's wrong, that doesn't make sense. So I would like to say to anyone listening, first, don't worry so much about if what I'm saying is wrong. If it's wrong, there's no harm and there's no foul. The thing that should be focused on is the possibility that what I'm saying is correct. Don't worry about what's wrong with it, but think about what if what I'm saying is actually accurate? What are the implications? That's what I would like to have people think about. Because we try to find fault and we talk ourselves out of listening to what's being said, and we may miss the point. So the first thing I'd like to mention is what we see happening every day in front of us, but we don't interpret it necessarily the way I'm presenting it. But I've kind of labeled this topic area as professional sports, the slippery slope of player empowerment and its erosion of the master-slave relationship. So we see this happening right in front of us every day. There's probably no one listening that will dispute that America has been based on a foundation of master-servant relationships that play out in every dimension of society, institutions, personal relationships, ownership of different things and workers, but it's all based on a master-slave or master-servant theory, where the masters are the white males generally, and the servants are everybody else. And the least desirable servant, the most criticized servant, tends to be the black man and woman who were originally brought here on slave ships to serve the economic engine of the country. So when we think, if we accept that, we have to accept also that all of our professional teams are plantations, albeit the workers may be paid handsomely. The structure is still that of a master and a servant. And the players today, many of the marquee players, if we are cognizant of what's happening, have figured out that they might be a servant on the plantation, but the marquee players have developed themselves to a position that they are businesses in and of their own right. So they have a business relationship with the owners. So when we think of what they're doing, a lot of them are making business decisions. They're not just personal decisions to be able to play on this team. And we can see, which started visibly for us with our own LeBron James, was the move to go to Miami and create his own team. That was a signal that players have identified that they're not part of the league, they are the league. And they have power that they hadn't used before. So LeBron started this slippery slope of going with Dwayne Wade, Bosh, and making the nucleus of what they call a super team. So now we have players that have realized that they have empowerment, that they can do whatever they like to do. And they have eroded the rule of law. So Kevin Durant can announce that he's going to move, even though he signed a 4-year contract. He can ignore the contractual arrangements that have been made and throw the entire league of 29 teams into turmoil because they got to figure out what they're going to do based on this decision, because he's realized that he is a marquee player and he is the league. The marquee players are the league. So whatever they decide to do, I don't care whether you agree with it, you disagree with it, they have the freedom based upon the excellence that they have demonstrated in this area to be able to do whatever they like to do, whenever they like to do, in the middle of the season, before the season starts, 2 days into the season, 1 day after they sign a contract, they can decide to do something else. And the league is almost powerless to do anything about it. So we're seeing this shifting of this paradigm now where the owners who have been vicious, and these players know it too, the owners have viciously tried to maintain this master-servant relationship. And I'll give some examples that people know, but they may not have seen it for what it was. Mahmoud Abdul-Raif, when he played for Denver, they put him out of the league because of his Muslim practices. Craig Hodges, right after the Bulls won the championship, went to the White House and asked the president to do something to help black people. They ran him out of the league because these are like field slaves that are getting a little bit too uppity. Doug Williams broke every single record and never was heard of after that. We all know Colin Kaepernick. We know Louis Gossett won the Academy Award for supporting actors in Officer and Gentleman and never got the credit, never got the scripts after that. So this has been shown to us by Jack Johnson, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, Dave Chappelle. So these people have decided that they have more power than they had been using. And so now we have, on top of this, Ice Cube has started a 3-on-3 league. So we might be just 1 or 2 steps away from these players deciding that they can have their own professional leagues and they don't need any of these owners for anything. So we're seeing in front of us a shifting in the consciousness of people added to the excellence, the expertise, the skill they have in their area. And they have figured out that they don't have to be on these plantations. They could do what they like to do, and they have freedom that we've been talking about. So I think that this is something that we should watch, and we should interpret it not as belligerent players, but as empowered black people that have figured out that they have the ability to chart their own destinies. Now, it may play out and it will destroy the league. If it does, so be it. The league is not bringing any of us on the call money anyway. So if they don't play, so they don't play. But I'm interested and excited about what I see happening, because we need people to show us examples of how you can couple expertise with your personal desires and can move around more freely in a society that's built upon controlling every single person, and black people in particular.
Yet it
So
is.
that's what I think about that.
It is profoundly evident that there is a movement to control the lives of everybody on the planet, black folks specifically, but everybody. When you look at what the World Economic Forum is pushing forward and the way they have locked down different countries and all these protocols and things that they're implementing to control the lives of people, it is obvious that they're doing that. But as you're saying, that there's also an accompanying rise in the level of consciousness and the idea that we can do things differently if we choose to do so. You know, as you were commenting, I was thinking about the time in which we had the Negro baseball leagues, and then Jackie Robinson got into Major League Baseball and things kind of fell apart because all of a sudden we decided that we wanted to be a part of their plan and not a part of our own plan. And when we were a part of our own plan, you know, the Negro leagues were thriving. Players were getting paid, audiences were being entertained, and it was a great paradigm for us. Perhaps it's time to recapture that type of energy and momentum. You're listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE with Hamtonio, yours truly, Vince Robinson, and our guest, Dr. Kwa David Whitaker. We'll be back with more 360 Info Network after this message from the African American Museum.
Hi, I am Frances Caldwell, Executive Director of the African American Museum, welcoming you to join us as we continue to rebuild, grow, develop, and help the community. In addition to the rich historical exhibits we have, we are offering community education, cultural opportunities to enhance our children, including free dance and business classes. The African American Museum celebrates over 60 years as America's oldest independent black museum. And as our founder, Ichabod Flewellen, intended, we are heading for higher heights and renew community education, history, and culture. You can contribute to the success of this valued institution by becoming a member. To make your $35 yearly membership pledge, Cash App $AAMCLE. For more information, please visit our website at aamcle.org or call 216-721-6555. Thank you for your support of Cleveland's African American Museum.
Welcome back to 360 Info Network with your hosts, Hamtonio, and yours truly, Vince Robinson. Our guest is Dr. Kwa David Whitaker, and we have been talking about some interesting information this morning. You know, I want to I want to pick up on something that I heard about yesterday. It was absolutely astounding that they would want to reclassify slavery as involuntary relocation. Involuntary relocation. There's actually a movement to use that terminology instead of slavery in the history books in the state of Texas. And it's mind-blowing that someone would actually come up with something so preposterous. But actually, you are getting that right now. So let's get back to the conversation. Dr. Kwa David Whitaker.
Okay, thank you. I heard that suggestion myself, but we have to understand that America has always looked for and prided itself and reinforced its stranglehold on people by using any euphemism that can be found to soften the reality of what is being discussed. So if you say slavery is not slavery, it's involuntary migration, it just sounds more pleasant than slavery. So pretty soon people forget about what slavery was because the term just sounds better. But remember when we used to have used cars and now we have certified pre-owned cars? As if that's not a used car.
Right.
So America is renowned for using euphemisms. You have invaders at military time, and they call them peacekeepers. These aren't peacekeepers. This is a military force that's occupying your land. But if you call them peacekeepers, it makes everybody think psychologically that something's happening that's good, or it's not as bad as you think it is. So this is not something new. This America calls itself a democracy too. So when was this democracy for black people? When did that ever happen?
Yeah.
Never.
Right.
So this is not surprising to me. It's predictable. Well, let me make my last little point on this sports thing. Part of what's happened, if those of us that follow these things, Jake Paul and his brother, these bloggers have become boxers. And they're fighting and making big money, and they haven't been involved in boxing at all, really. But they're proving that you can work the system from outside the system using social media, getting enough following, and it's all about business. So you can create a business for yourself that you weren't even in, that you make more money than most of the people in boxing, and you're a blogger. So these people are figuring out how the system works. And if you can get the people, you don't need the owner. You don't need the manager. If you can go directly to the consumer, you don't need all of this infrastructure that they have put in place to be able to control and dictate and determine who does what, when they can do it, how they can do it. They're circumventing all of this. So the structure can fall apart very easily if we have people that, as Malcolm would say, you have field slaves and you have house slaves. Well, if field slaves can get themselves going, there's very little that the system can actually do about what you're doing because it thrives on what you produce anyway. So you might as well produce it yourself. So let me move to, Antonio, let me move to the shrinking population question or topic. There's no one that would disagree with this statement that America is based on the principle of majority rule. It's been structured that way. Even when America was not the majority, when whites were not the majority, because at one point the enslaved population outnumbered the people that were not enslaved. So America has always functioned on two principles. Majority rule works very well if you're in the majority, because you can simply vote, structure things, and since you have the majority and you know the majority rules, it appears that it's all on the up and up. The majority just has made its statement. But in the event where you don't have the majority, whites have also shown to the world that they opt for another system called apartheid. So majority rule works good if you're in the majority. If you're not in the majority, apartheid works just as well. It requires a different kind of force. It requires a different kind of honesty about what's happening and a viciousness to make it work because you're outnumbered. So what's happening in America now, as I look at it, is the people that are in power, have always been in power, are orchestrating everything we see, do, eat, all the prices, inflation, recession, all of this is being orchestrated. But that only works in majority rule when you're in the majority. The demographics have said for at least 20 years now that the white majority is not producing enough children to stay in the majority. So I've said and posted on it several times in the past 10 years that as the white population declines, the structure has to move from what we are told is democratic processing based on majority rule to something that's based on less than majority rule because the whites will not be in the majority. So now it's clear that they won't be in the majority in another 10 or 15 years. So there has to be an accelerated process to undo these structures that have supported majority rule. So you have to roll back these political positions. You have to roll back and change these laws because they won't work the same if you're not in a majority, because you'll be outvoted. So you have to suppress the right to vote, right? Not because you don't want people to vote, but there's too many people to vote against you. You don't have enough population to carry things just on your vote. You need allies. So if black people were to get together with Hispanics, you see, that's more of the population than the white population. So you can't have what you want. So you have to change the rules. And if we haven't learned anything, we should know that the ruling majority, in tough times, all they do is change the rules. Once it's clear that you can do exactly what they can do, they simply change the rules.
Dr. Whitaker,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt for just a moment. Do you think that what you're speaking of has anything to do with the reversal of Roe v. Wade?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
Because if Roe v. Wade is reversed, what does that mean? That means people can't have abortions. That's what that means, technically. Mm-hmm. So, why would you want if you don't want black people, which is apparent that black people are not really desirable across the whole planet? Why would you want to promote more births of black people? That doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is you're trying to avoid the abortions of the other people. You need there's not too many people on the planet. There's too many people of the certain persuasion on the planet and too few people of other persuasions. So Roe v. Wade is going to prevent white women from having abortions. You don't care about the black children that may be born because you have built in so many ways to kill them anyway.
Yes.
You're undereducated. You know they'll have short lives. Their communities will have less services, so they won't thrive. You've got all kind of ways that you can get at them. What you're trying to do is promote the birth of the people that now currently do not produce enough people to stay on the planet. So for the people that may not be aware, the demographics say that in order to maintain a population, you have to have 2.1 births for every 2 people. That means any 2 people will replace themselves, and you have to have at least a few more births to account for stillborns, children that don't thrive. So you have to have at least 1/10 of another person statistically in order to maintain a population. So there is no place on earth today, according to the demographics, where white people are having 2.1 children. It's estimated that if you have less than 1.8 children for every 2 people, it's unsustainable. So in most places in Europe, the population birth rates are down to 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 is high. In the U.S., I think for whites it's less than 2.1. So that means that you cannot sustain this population with that birth rate. Because every time 2 people die, there's only 1 person to replace the 2. So how long can that go on? So they've been writing about this for decades. I've been reading it. So now this time is upon the world. So meanwhile, African population has gone from 700,000 during the Honorable Messiah Garvey. Now it's 1.2 or 3 billion people on the continent of Africa, and there's been a campaign for decades to kill people. But the population has increased. So now it's estimated that in another 20 years, the population of Africa will be 1.8 billion. So to keep growing, even though there's efforts been underway to reduce the population, but somehow the population keeps growing. So you mean to tell me that people that know that their population is shrinking and may not sustain itself for another 40 years, 2 generations, you can't sustain this population, this demographic reality. So that means you have to step up your efforts to reduce the population, because you don't have time. You don't have time. Just like we're told about global warming, climate change. What's reported is we don't have time. We've reached a point of no return on certain things. In my reading and what I'm suggesting is the global ruling community has passed the point of no return. You cannot make people, elders don't have children.
And that's you know, like I said, started off the conversation, you know, and that's what we want to bring light to certain things, because when, you know, political and legislation start making decisions on certain things, you kind of understand, and you know, those are indicators to show you what's going on, and it should arm you with the desperateness of what is going to take place in coming towards you. You know what I mean? So you're talking about when he mentioned rape and incest, and you can't, you know, they don't want you to have abortions. That should just jump right out at you and let you know what's going on, because we messed around and took Georgia, almost took Texas, looking at North Carolina, and then you just said the census just was taken in 17% reduction in European population here in this country. That's why I've been trying to, been telling people, you're in a state of emergency right now. This is like Custer's last stance, and so when you get people that is threatening like that, you need to be aware. A white lady, wrote a book called How Civil Wars Start. Her name was Barbara Walters. And she said, in contradictory to popular demand, people think civil war starts from the impoverished and things of that nature. But she says it don't. It starts from people feeling that the outgoing power structure is happening, and they tend to overturn the government and things of that nature to promote civil war. So, and you see people lining up with politics based on race instead of ideology. See, so those are some of the indicators of saying that, hey, we're in a interesting situation to where countries rise, nations fall, and things of that nature. And then this may be a good segue of going into why we should be looking somewhere else at this point in time.
I think you're making good points. Let me make one other point. I don't know how many people have seen it, but a lot of us have seen when Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in Zaire. When he knocked Foreman out, if you remember the image of the scene, he's following Foreman around, and Foreman seems to be falling, but he doesn't hit him anymore. And the principle that demonstrates is you don't have to hit somebody that's falling down already.
Okay.
This challenge that we have with the former masters, whether they be enslavers or colonizers, it's all the same people. The demographics, in my mind, tells me that they're falling down on their own. We don't need to do anything other than just stay out of their way so they don't fall on us.
Okay.
Nothing's going to stop the demographics. Nothing's going to stop that. They're in a state of emergency. It's not all of us in the same state of emergency. We appear to be in a state of emergency only because we keep trying to get them to do something to treat us differently. But what if we simply said, we don't want to have anything to do with them? They're falling on their own. We don't have to make them fall. We don't have to demand anything from them. If we just realize that their power is a function of our willingness to do what they say. That's their power. We do what they say. What if we didn't do what they said? What if we didn't care what they said? What if we said, well, they got limited time anyway, so let's not worry about it. Let's worry about developing ourselves. Let's worry about what we're going to do. Let's just focus on what we need to accomplish and not let them have much space in our minds about what they're doing and what we need. We don't need reparations from them, actually. We can get our reparations simply if we decided not to support their system. Their system can't work unless we support it. We have to do what they ask in order for them to be powerful over us. We have to comply. Let me mention one person that most people probably haven't read about. William Cooper wrote a book, Behold a Pale Horse. William Cooper was formerly a naval intelligence personnel that looked at decoding messages. He made two statements in the book. He made two statements that are powerful. He said, one, a mountain of lies can be brought down by one truth that's put on top of the mountain of lies. Just one truth will bring down an entire mountain of lies, because it takes a lot of lies to support something that's not true. The second thing he said he noticed in his naval intelligence work is that the powers that be always do things just to test the reaction of the public. And they'll do things like raise the price of sugar enormously just to see if the public will still buy it. It's just a test to see what the reaction would be from the public. Now, I believe the situation that we are just coming out of that's been going on for the past 2 years or so, and I won't mention it by its name to get your show in trouble. I'll just say the situation. What if the situation is really just a test to see if you could put the whole world on punishment? That's an amazing achievement, to tell the whole world to go to your room, stay in your house. Don't just to see, would people actually be willing to do this? And if they would be, what doors does that open for us to have control? And they have found out that the whole world will go to its room and be on lockdown just because you said so. So that gives, armed with that kind of information, it gives you a whole lot of potential power, knowing that you can convince the entire planet of 8 billion people to stay in their house. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. And don't say I'm wrong, but think about what if it's right. Well, let me go to your last topic that you had for me, was talk about some things that have to do with Africa and my work. Some people think I'm still vacationing in Africa because I like the weather, which is, after 60, 70 trips there for 20 years, anybody would know that has to be a silly statement to make. There must be something going on that you're doing. So right now there's 1.4 billion people in Africa. Half of those people are 25 and under. So you have the youngest population on the planet of people that could be developed to take leadership positions if they had the right tutelage. You have land to develop housing, businesses, farming that's available, that anybody can work through, with, and on. The weather's perfect. It's sunny almost every day. It never snows. You have beaches, coastlines. You have a workforce that's ready to work if they had a little supervision, direction, and resources. And you have a culture that could be revived and is still alive. We have no culture here for us. We live in a society that's based on master-servant. Every institution is structured around master-servant. And we're fighting the masters in every place that we go, trying to get equality, which is not going to happen. They can't afford to give us equality because they would find out that we would be more equal than them. And they already know this. They already know how powerful, how capable, how creative we are. So the likelihood that with a diminishing population, you're going to turn over equality to people that you already know are better and more capable than you is just not a rational thing to think will happen. But you have a place called Africa that has all of your own people on it already. And almost everybody looks just like you. So you don't have to deal with these kind of things. You have to deal with other things. So I'm going to mention some things that we're doing in Ghana. And when I say we, even though I'll say I, but it's not I, it'll be we. We have a team of people that a lot of people on the call are aware of, that are our team members, partners, or collaborators. PLO Lumumba, which everybody probably knows from videos, is on our team. Arakana Chiambori Kwao, which everybody has probably seen on videos, the former AU ambassador to the United States, is on our team. George Fraser, who's right here in Cleveland, is on our team. Tony Browder is on our team. Chika Akua is on our team. Anika Jabari, Anika Osase, Jabari Osase, Professor Small, who you just had here in Cleveland, Nana Obakesi, key political allies we have. And so there's things that we have been working on to develop that are primed for moving forward. Many of you know about a lot of them because now you've been there. Lynn, you've been to Ghana. So when I say what we're doing, for people that may be interested in something, we are working in the central region. The central region is the cultural hub, the historical place that relates to the Ma'afa and how our ancestors all got out of Africa against their will, that they're now calling whatever the new euphemistic term is, or involuntary immigrants, or whatever they're going to say. So it is the hub of the cultural history of our people, because it has the two infamous dungeons, Elmina Dungeon and Cape Coast Dungeon, where all the people came to these places. It's estimated that 75% of the people taken off the African continent during the enslavement process came through these two places, which is now New Ghana, the Gold Coast. So this is the area where all of our work is centered. I'm a chief in the central region in Elmina, in a village that's about 2 miles from Elmina Dungeon. At this point, as mentioned, we are in the process of building the first African-centered university on the African continent, called the Obakesi University of Excellence. I'm the rector. The rector is the term they use, which means in our parlance would be the boss, the rector. The school you mentioned, that we've had our programs, Wings Academy, we've filed papers to clone that school in Ghana on land that we've already secured. It'll be in the shape of the Ankh that's developed by Chika Akua. So that's be the architectural design. It'll be the Ankh. It'll be on top of a hill. So it'll look like a pyramid structure that was somehow beamed down to the continent somewhere in the middle of what appears to be no place. The Pan-African Village Project 5,000 acres of land that was donated by King Okatachi. We're involved in the development of that project, which will be homes, businesses, you name it, a city, 5,000 acres. If you understand how big that is, it's probably bigger than the city of Washington, D.C., easily. Mm-hmm. We're also working in the city of Moree, where one of our most exciting things for those that study history. The city of Moree was founded by two giants, according to folklore. Ofarnye Kweja, a fisherman, which we just dedicated a statue to him that, if you saw it online, I posted all while we were going the process. He came from Kemet, along with his friend who was he was a farmer, Asebu Amenfi. The legend is that these two giants came from Kemet during the Exodus, and they migrated out of Kemet down through Africa and finally settled on this coastline. I'm the chief consultant for the Moree Kemetic Rebirth Projects, that we are getting scholars together to try to retrace and redesign the history and provide the narrative that proves once and for all, conclusively, without any doubt, that African people migrated out of Kemet and came down to what is now the West Coast, through Songhai, through Old Ghana, Mali, and ultimately down to Ghana, where we are today. To add to this, Tony Browder gave me about 3 years ago, and he's mentioned it now, so I feel comfortable in being able to say it. With his work going on in the Valley of the Kings, he has been given access to tombs that have never been open to the public. And he's told me that he's seen tombs now that make the King Tut's tomb seem like a small phone booth. And on one of the ceiling of one of these tombs, he took a photo and sent it to me, and the photo is of the Sankofa symbol that we recognize every day today.
Wow.
We know that there's a connection between Kemet and sub-Saharan Africa and the West Coast. We know that. Mm-hmm. So part of what we're doing is putting together a team of researchers, historians, to trace the steps of Ofarnye Kweja and Asebu Amenfi and restructure and tell the narrative the way it should have been told all along. So if people are interested in education, if you're interested in history, if you're interested in development, if you're interested in just being around people that look like you all day long, nice weather and good conditions, and have skills that you can use, you can be part of Exodus 2.0. Go someplace where you can do something, where you can put your skills to use. Even if you don't stay, you can come and go, like I come and go. So things that we're working on right now, in addition to those things, we have a 65-acre plot of land that we're going to be developing for housing. We have another 5 acres that we're going to develop for a condo complex. I have 4.3 acres where my house is. We're going to develop that for people that want to move, use for retirement, or buy something and be involved. We have a manufacturing process that's going to be implemented and produce products. I'm an educator, so much of my interest is in education. So we're working with schools. So if there's teachers that have some ability to teach or have some skill that want to be involved, these are things that can actually be done. We're not making up stories right now. But I would like to say, without feeling like I'm being obnoxious and arrogant, but if anybody is interested in any of these things, you can contact me, send me an email at ashe1, ASHE1, LTD@gmail, and I'll let you know whatever I can provide as terms of information, questions. The only thing I'm asking, don't call me, don't write me if you are not serious. If you just want some information to take up time, please don't contact me. Because as soon as I start asking you some questions and ask you to do something, a lot of people I never hear from anymore. So if that's the category that you're in, just don't call me. But if you want to do something and you're serious about it and you're ready to do it, then we need a lot of people. African people have figured out something, and we should have figured it out too. African people have now figured out that part of their destiny is tied up in their ability to hook up with us. Because in the U.S., one of the things that has happened, even through the master-servant relationship that exists everywhere, we are the most educated, formally educated black people on earth. There's no population of people on earth that have had more formal education than us. So we have skills, tools, and expertise that the people in Africa need and don't have. We should have figured out that they have the people, the land, the opportunities, the capacity to rule and make decisions that we don't have.
And the culture.
Things together, they have the culture. We put these two things together. We have a formidable team that can chart its own destiny. Instead of us begging these people to give us Juneteenth, all of a sudden Juneteenth becomes a big thing. We've had Juneteenth forever. But we are so naive and simple-minded that Juneteenth doesn't become popular until a white man tells us it's Juneteenth. We've known it was Juneteenth for 50 years. Now we're going to celebrate Juneteenth because Biden said it's a national holiday. It was already a national holiday for us. So if we just wake up and realize we have opportunities available to us that we didn't have before. We had them, but we didn't. But all of our scholars, all of our researchers, all of our most revered elders and our ancestors have told us this for 40 years. So we're at a point where we should be able to see it now, and we're dealing with an enemy that's falling down on its own.
Nana, we're having this conversation about culture, and we have just a few moments before we conclude, but I just want to get to the idea that you expressed early in the program that half of the population of the continent is 25 years of age or younger. And I know that, many Africans are adopting some of the subcultural manifestations of hip-hop culture and so forth and so on. My concern is that there is a continuing of the embrace of culture on the continent of Africa and the respect that is endemic to culture that will allow them to maintain African traditions and move us forward. We had a conversation with Kenge last night, and they were just saying that, what they're doing in terms of preserving Luo culture is not necessarily resonating with everyone, because young folks are not as enamored with those cultural aspects as we are. Some of us here who understand the importance of it. So, as you look at things, do you see a continuation of the respect that's an aspect of culture and the ability to maintain our integrity as a result? And we just have 1 minute.
Okay, I would say yes and no. Yes, to a certain extent, but no in the sense, and this is part of our work. We have to people have to understand that the continent of Africa, for lack of a better way to describe it right at the moment, I'm in a hurry too, you have to think of Africa as a post-colonial, neo-colonial continent where all of the structure, the infrastructure throughout the entire continent is the European structure that was put in place to advance the interests of European colonizers. So this has been glorified, and it has pushed the traditional culture to a lower position because it has been made to look glamorous, look like it's the thing to do. So this is what we're actually fighting against. We're fighting against the colonial structure that's still in place where the leaders give away all the resources. Ghana has the second largest, if not the largest, gold mines on the continent. But I just found out that the contract between the mine and the European nations, the UK in particular, the UK takes 98% of the profits out of the mine, and Ghana gets 2%. Now, you tell me how crazy that is. So all these African nations, you have to think of them as neo-colonial colonies in the hands of African people. But the African people are not really functioning in their own interest. So the young people look around and they see America on TV, they see Europe on TV, and they know that looks better in so many ways than what they have. So this is part of our work.
Okay.
Our work is to get them to realize that this is a model that will never work. 50 years from now, you'll be just like Europe.
Yes.
100 years from now, you'll be just like Spain if you keep following this path. So that's part of our work, is to get them to make a turn based on what we know.
Okay. Well, apparently we do have a lot of work to do, and we'll just have to keep pushing forward, pressing forward, and doing what we have to do to make sure that what you have just described does happen. Thank you for joining us on 360 Info Network. We definitely look forward to your next visit, and hopefully we can have you back on before you make the journey back to the motherland. Dr. Kwa David Whitaker. All right, Brother Hamptonia, we are out of time. So with that, we want to thank everyone for listening. We also want to thank our engineer, Tone, for keeping us all together today. And thank you for listening. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day, Cleveland. Peace.